Hello there. My name is Salim Javed and I'm an assistant professor at the Faculty of Mass Communication and Media Technology at SGT University. We are celebrating World Television Day. So far we have talked about Konstantin Dmitrovich Briadsky, John Logie Baird, German physicist Arthur Kohn, Paul Julius Gottlieb Nipkow, and then we talked about how by 1959, on to be precise 15 September 1959, we had the first television transmission which took place from Akashvani Bhavan from New Delhi, how UNESCO contributed, how programs were of, initially the programs were of 20 minutes of duration. Then we talked about secondary school television project. Then we talked about the reasons how it came late to why television came late to India. Then we talked about how 70s has been important. Then in the year 1973 we had site experiment. Then we talked about what were the outcome of site, then what were the observation. That time slot was problem. It was a time slot was problem for student also, farmers also. Then we talked about Varghese Committee, which was formed in 1977, and the recommendation of National Broadcasting Trust and other things. Now, by the time we reach 80s, as 1970s was important, 80 was amazingly important. Now, what happened in 80? By year 1982, we have Asiad Games. Now, why Asiad is important? Because we have the starting of the color television with this, and all the capitals and important cities were provided the low power transmitters, and Doordarshan, people from Doordarshan actually got a chance to work with best technician in the world, and the successful handling of the event by Doordarshan professionals were widely appreciated. Around 50,000 television sets were imported within that year, and around 1 lakh in the next year. So this is how television was, making its space in every household. By 1982, we have India's first national satellite, INSAT-1A, which was launched in August 1982 but failed on 4th of September 1982. Therefore, the relay transmission were carried out with the help of microwave link till INSAT-1B became operational after its launch in August 1983. So INSAT-1A, 1B, later on you will find 1C, then 1D, and then so on. Now, by the same year, by 1982, government appointed a working group under Dr. P.C. Joshi as chairman to prepare a software plan for Doordarshan. Its report was submitted on July 1983. Now, this particular report actually criticized the role of Doordarshan and stated that Doordarshan has failed to achieve its aim of becoming medium of public service and social education also. It also emphasized on the setting up of the National Doordarshan Council on the basis of BBC Council, decentralization of Doordarshan. In 1982 we are talking about decentralization of Doordarshan, and suggested to find out its root in the rich Indian heritage and to develop a strong Indian identity through television. Now, as I said, like 70s, 1980s is very important. So you have this much important things happening. Now, very amazing thing happened in 1984. The first soap opera, Hum Log, went on air in July 1984. But with the objective of promoting women welfare, family planning, and reinforcing positive social value that I was talking about, the same thing I talked about in the last lecture also. And so even if we are talking about the starting, we are talking about the same values. Even if we are talking about side, we are talking about the same value. Now we are starting our entertainment. This is technically the beginning of golden era of Doordarshan. But we are it's not just of Doordarshan, then in 90s you have a lot of private television channels coming up. a lot of other things also, but they started having a solid base which was to promote women welfare, family planning, and reinforcing positive values. You must be knowing a lot of, my generation knows about बुनियाद, ये जो है जिंदगी इधर उधर, रजनी, रामायण, महाभारत, अलिफ लैला, विक्रम बेताल, भारत एक खोज, तमस, कैप्टन व्योम, तहकीकात, ब्योमकेश बख्शी. There are Malgudi days. You can talk about names, and I can say that this was the beginning of golden era of television in India, and we took our inspiration of these soap operas. Just see all these information on your screen, that what brilliant development was going on as far as television, and how television made space in Indian household. It is there in your bedroom, drawing room. It's there in your drawing room, and you're enjoying today with such a different kind of content. But when I was young, we were also enjoying with a lot of brilliant things. UGC right now, through which you are watching this lecture, actually started higher education, HETV, in 1984. By 1987, you have morning and late night transmission, and Bulletin for Deaf and Dumb also started. I was talking about 1A and 1B. Now this is by 1988, and by 1919 you have the Intel 1C, launch of Intel 1C and 1D, and in 1989 afternoon transmission started. Now 70s is important, 80s is super important, and 90s is important from technology point of view, and one of the biggest change happened in the late 80s and the beginning of the 90s. 90s had its own impact. Now it's not only in India but worldwide. By the end of 1980, USA, UK, Japan, and several European nations hooked on to cable television. Now, liberal policies of Government of India in 1989 helped cable operators grow. Now, the early 90s witnessed the spread of satellite and cable television in India. A lot of people must have seen, thousands of wire running through electricity pole in 90s, because they were cable TV cables. So in 90s only, in the beginning, Hong Kong based Star TV entered into India, and the entire landscape of television demography changed by this time. This is a time when a lot of private channels started coming in India. I remember watching a lot of programs on Discovery. Sony was there, I Dream of Genie was there, then Three Stooges used to be there. So I still remember one very interesting commentary, and we sometimes make fun of that also. देखो देखो माइक सामने से कुत्तों का झुंड आ रहा है. हाँ, मैथ्यू तुम बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हो. So the commentary used to be so funny, and even we used to as a kid we used to enjoy Discovery also. But 90s is the time when all these private channels were started coming in India, and by mid 90s you have private news channel also started growing up. Now, if you see all these development, I've written it on screen from 1993 to almost 2019. All these developments, Doordarshan was trying to keep up. Now, why I'm talking about Doordarshan? Because when we talk about television in India, you should talk about television, because that is what we started with. Now, a lot of other things like other private channels and all these things, they are the product of 90s, and you complain about the content of all these programs, television shows running for months. A small thing I said, it runs for years, it runs for decades, it runs for 2 decades, it runs for 2.5 decades. I'm not joking. CID ran for 25 years. That's not a joke. So that's why it is important to talk about Doordarshan. All these developments, look at all these developments from 1993 to 2019. Doordarshan kept on pulling up its socks but the competition was so fierce. All around, everywhere, they were playing with they have to play by rules, and for private channels, technically there were no rules. Like there are many other reasons also, by the way. I'm just not praising Doordarshan. Even Doordarshan had its own problem. Not only the administration apathy, but there are other reasons also. Like some of the reasons, I tell you, when I talk about the golden era of television, I talk about 80s, when you have tamas being shown on Indian television. You have brilliant telefilms commissioned to stalwart directors in India. Bharati Khoj, can you imagine that Bharati Khoj was made at that point of time? It's an encyclopedia in itself. Then you have wonderful program Ramayana. Look, ask your parents. They will show you what effect Ramayana had on people. You have Mahabharata, you have Alif Laila, you have Mowgli. So Doordarshan was creating quality content. And later on, it distanced itself from the quality content. And not only this is one of the major reasons. Another major reason was, post 2000, when there was a fierce competition going on everywhere, there were still some programs which were responsible for good viewership for the program on Doordarshan. Doordarshan started charging high fee from these programs. So a lot of good producers actually pulled back, and unworthy rationing of the program also became one of the major reasons. Now, so all these developments is fine. Now, let's get into the world, what you see on television. Let's categorize that. What you see on television, how they entice you, how you fall in love with content. So if you talk about all the contents available on all types of channels in the world, there are broadly two categories. One is fiction and one is non-fiction. So when you are talking about fiction, you are talking about soap opera, film, telefilm, cartoon, sitcom, rom-com, stand-up comedy, action series, adventure, advertising, etc., and so many other things. But when you talk about non-fiction programs, you are talking about educational program like this, sports program, religious program, reality show, variety show, travel show, makeover show, anthology show, documentary, docudrama, dramality, dramedy, quotes from drama, medical drama, information, fashion, and thousands of other things. Now, what genre you see on television? You see action, animation, art, factual, public affair, broadcasting, news, science fiction, sports-based program, variety show, children's show, music show, detective show, adventure, cooking, education, game, religion, comedy, information. All these categories that I'm talking about, trust me, on each category there was always a wonderful program in 80s on Doordarshan. So you talk about a children program, you have wonderful children programs. So it all started. Now, let's talk about the formats in which you see programs. Now, as you can see, there is something called clip. So it's one of the format called clip. Now, what is clip? Clip is basically technically a half an hour show of recap. So what does it mean, half an hour show of recap? It is basically before grand finale, you create a, say, half an hour or 1 hour episode of all the highlights, so that when you are aware with all the highlights, you enjoy grand finale more. So that is called a clip show. Then documentary, you know about documentary. That documentary is a non-fiction motion picture style which intends to document reality for the purpose of instruction, education, and maintaining historical record. And if you remember, in the history of film, in the history of cinema, I told you that Lumiere brothers, the films that Lumiere's brother made in the beginning, in the beginning itself, 1896 onwards, they are called actualities. Then you have docufiction. Now, please understand that I have not. This is not docudrama. This is docufiction. There is a difference between docudrama and docufiction. Now, first let's talk about docufiction, then we'll talk about docudrama. Now, docufiction also aims to capture reality, but uses fictional situation in narrative in order to strengthen the representation of reality. Whereas in docudrama, you are using the event, a past event, you are just enacting it out, but all those information has to be factually right. So you are using in docudrama, you are using, like suppose if Shivaji has said something, so you make somebody Shivaji and then he says something. So basically you have to have Shivaji to make it docudrama, but in docufiction it captures reality but uses fictional situation. Then you talk about one-time episode. It is basically like if you have seen Byomkesh Bakshi or Sherlock Holmes, so you see the entire series. So each episode is a complete story in itself, and throughout the season you have same person playing Sherlock Holmes or Byomkesh Bakshi. Then there is something called made for TV film. Now the only difference with this film is that it is, because it is commissioned by a television network, so it will be shown on television, it will not be shown in theaters, so that's why it's called telefilm. Then you have franchisee, where you basically create derivative work from an original work. So suppose there is a original story and you are making different sort of programs from that original story, then it will be a franchise. Then miniseries, I tell you, this is a rarity in India. It tells a story in limited number of episodes. Sorry, if we do not make small number of episodes, we make 1,000, 5,000, 6,000. We do not finish our story in 15 or 20 minutes, 15 or 20 episode kind of a thing. We don't do it. We are not good at it. So mini series does not make any sense for us. So then you have pilot. Pilot is basically, suppose if I approach a television network and I say that I want to make a program for you, they say thank you so much, but we will be more interested if you can show us how you will be making it. So I will make a show reel kind of a thing. So in television, that show reel, that this is how I'll be making this program, will be called a pilot project. Pilot, it is called, or it is also called un-air episode also. Then you have micro series. It's a wonderful way of advertising and directly reaching to your target audience. It's very limited in duration, and it works in a very subtle way. Saregama ka ad is just like that, so they are basically micro series. And then you have prequel. I was watching this Special Ops 1.5. So Himmat Singh Kaise Bana is basically the prequel. So, when you make a show on the backstory of a preceding work, it is called a prequel. Then you have Reboot. Reboot actually technically does not work in India, because there were some attempts which were miserably, it was miserably failed. So when you rebrand or restart an entertainment universe by discarding narrative continuity, as recreate the characters or plot line from the beginning, that is called reboot. Then you have a very interesting thing called spin-off. Now this is also, when I'll be talking about film writing, there is where this spin-off thing will come. So if it is basically a offshoot of an original program. Now what you are seeing on the screen, I make you understand it in a different way. In 2008, you see, you were watching this film called Iron Man. So if you see Natasha there in Iron Man, then you see an entire film on Natasha later on. That will be a spin-off. Now, so this was basically the kind of format the television television network or television channels use. Now let's observe some gimmick that these television channels, private television channel use. Now there is something called audience flow. Now audience flow is a very interesting concept. It's a World Television Day, so you should understand how television actually works and how it entices you. So these are the tricks through which it entices you. Now audience flow is basically, suppose you have a very popular program. Okay, so this is very popular program, and this is not so popular program. Now suppose if I put my show, which is a new show or not so popular show, after this popular program, so chances of people, those who have seen this popular program, they will also see my program. So some portion of that popular program will flow to my show also. So that is called audience flow. And you just tweak it little bit. So you have two wonderful programs, two very popular programs, and I put a weak show or a new show in between. So that will call hammock effect. Now suppose if by 8 o'clock I am watching some program number A, which is very interesting, and I love to watch that program, then by 9 o'clock they have introduced a new show because they want to make it big also. But I do not know about that show, but because at 8:30 I had a show which was very interesting, so I will continue to 9 o'clock also, because by 9:30 I will have another interesting program. So when you are putting between two wonderful programs, one weak program, that is called hammock effect. And the similar thing is called tent poling also. So there is one important program, and around this program you are putting up not so very important program, because this particular program is in center, so it will have this particular program will provide benefit to all the programs which are around it. So that will be calling a tent poling effect. Now staking, as the name suggests, you pile up, you schedule similar programs one after another, will be called staking. And then there is something called hot switching. Now this is, you must have observed a situation when you are watching a television program and before it is about to end, the next program starts. Now this is something happening in advertising also. You never, if you have not seen two different ads, trust me, you cannot make the difference, because there is no break in between. So as soon as the first ad ends, you start the second ad, and you really have to know, okay, here is where the first advertisement has ended. And same trick they use for television also, that before now people do not care to run the credits. So when you are not running the credits, so there is no, basically technically there is no gap between two programs. So as soon as one program ends, the second program starts, and that is called, technically that is called hot switching. Then you have cross programming. So this is like very popular. एक सीरियल के एक्टर दूसरे सीरियल में आ जाते हैं and they make maha episode. So this is called cross programming. This is very interesting. Now again, theming thing, when you book a specific time slot for a specific type of show for weeks and months, it's called theming. And then we talk about look at these, all these terms that I'm making you understand. Look at these terms, how they know that how you will be reacting. They know how you will be reacting. Now suppose, look at this bridging thing. When you miss the beginning of another show on another channel due to the program that you were watching on different network, is one of the program tricks that many television network opt for. Now this is something which is like difficult to understand, but let me tell you. Suppose a program runs from 8:30 to 9 p.m. but you stretch it by 5 minutes more. If you stretch and you make this program from 30 minutes to 35 minutes, including advertisement, If I want to watch some other program on some other channel, I will be missing the beginning of that program because of the 5 minutes that I have invested here in this episode. And if I keep doing it, I will lose interest in that program, and this program bridging, this technique, this maneuver or this gimmick, has destroyed one good candidate for other show. Now, so there are a lot of other things also. Now let's understand what we have talked about. Now, when we talked about 26 January 1926, when John Logie Baird actually did the first television telecast, and till date, when we have the highest ultra high definition TV, UDH TV, which is called, or 4K streaming, where it becomes so hard for us, for human eyes, to see the difference in resolution. Our perception of television is changing now. Our perception of television is changing. The young generation define television as anything they can watch on any device, because these cord cutters have transformed into cord nevers, and television is also merging with social media. The form, with these technological advancements, the form of television is bound to change, but not the philosophy of television. As far as television as an idea is concerned, as long as it provides interactive user experience and original and good content, any technology is not a threat. No technology is a threat. It will survive. It is increasingly social. This is all on World's Television Day. I hope that you must have got some interesting information out of this video. I hope to see you some other time. Thank you so much.